very briefly that at least last night, the discussion began with verse 4, and in verse 4, then the personified Vedas, in verses, mantras 4 and 5, they were talking about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You know, the way this book is structured, if you look at it carefully, you'll see it's studying two subjects, really. That is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the devotees, or you could say the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entities, particularly the devotees. And the way it's structured, you get a verse like the invocation, which is about the Supreme Lord, very broad and general, you could say. He's perfect and complete. But then you get a verse, it's the Ishavasya verse, mantra number 1. And it's about the process for approaching him. And then the mantra number 2 was about if you put the Ishavasya process into effect, if you live according to it, then your life becomes perfect. Then we went into the next section, and well, that was just mantra number 3, if you remember, about the non-devotees, and well, you could say condemning them, actually, condemning them very strongly, and not mincing any words, just right to the point. That those who don't accept the Ishavasya principle and the process based on it, they go to the darkest regions of ignorance, and basically they're just destroyed and everything is lost. So then last night we started with mantra 4, and 4 and 5 we're going a little more in detail into describing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then mantras 6 and 7 and 8, but 6 and 7 particularly, they were talking about the devotees, or the people who do follow the Ishavasya principle and live according to it. And of course they were on different levels, as we described last night. The Mahabhagavats, the Uttama Adhikaris, the great exalted devotees. And then the Madhyam Adhikaris, the middle level devotees, who are basically doing well, and they're in the process of cultivating and developing their Krishna consciousness, their relationship with the Absolute Truth, the Personality of Godhead. So like this, 4 and 5, we're taking a step deeper into the subject of the Lord. And 6 and 7, we're going deeper into the subject of those who follow the process. And then 8 was kind of like a combination, really, describing the Supreme Lord, and that the devotees, those who follow the Ishavasya principle, they realize the Lord, and some examples of how they realize Him, what sort of interesting features of His they come to know. that he's unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, and there were several. Those devotees realize the Lord, and they realize these different characteristics and aspects of the nature of the Lord. Then we went into section 4, mantras 9 to 14, and we got up to 11. We finished 11. And in this sort of mood or this approach of going step by step, the Lord, the devotees, the non-devotees, and then more about the Lord, then more about the devotees, like step by step going deeper into the different subjects. So in mantra 9, the shortcomings of those who do not follow the Ishavasya principle was pointed out further, and particularly like by giving some more specific examples, different types of different categories of people from that greater group, which is the non-devotees or those who don't accept the Ishavasya principle. So 9 was like that. Then 10 was about the devotees and the non-devotees, the culture of knowledge and the culture of nescience. 11 was saying that for a devotee, you have to learn the culture of nescience and the culture of real knowledge side by side. And of course, Prabhupada explains in the purport, and we make the point, that the idea that one has to learn the process of nescience does not mean you just have to dive into material life and just, really involve yourself in it. But it means you have to understand it, what it is, how it works, at least in the basic ways. Like, as an example, which we didn't mention specifically last night, but it's a fairly good example, is that in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna talks about the material nature, the 3 modes, and he talks about the material elements, bhumya apo nalo vayu kamano varevacha ahankara ityame vinna prakritir ashtada. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. These are my separated material energies, Krishna says. But now, the material scientists, what they're doing, instead of just being willing to say that, okay, matter means earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Those are the basic gross elements, and just leave it at that. No, they have to analyze further and further that earth, there are different types or subdivisions, you could say, of the element earth, or water. Don't just take it as water, take it as H2O, subdivided, and subdivide earth, calcium, sodium, sulfur, and potassium. I was never very good at chemistry, but there are all these different chemicals and subdivisions of them and combinations of them. Actually, they're just different aspects of earth. And from Krishna's presentation in Bhagavad Gita, we can take it. That's all. It's all you really need to know, that there's earth. You don't have to go into the subject of earth and in great detail. It's just not required. What is required is to understand the basic functioning of the material world and what's wrong with it, and then to get out of it. That's what's required. So, yeah, so like this. The devotees, in order to really progress, we were saying last night, they do need to have at least a basic understanding of the material nature, what it is and how it works, and what's wrong with it. And you could say why and how it doesn't work. Like this. And that becomes a type of impetus in Krishna consciousness. Impetus in the sense, particularly for those who are not so experienced in Krishna consciousness, they need to be reminded from time to time that look out, watch out for the material world. Don't go back into it. Because after some time they may forget and think, well, that's not so bad. I can go back into material life and it's okay. But so therefore they need to be reminded, and many people need to be reminded from time to time that no, don't go back into material life. It's really the wrong thing. And this is why one needs to understand the process of nescience, at least to some degree. So we're going on this evening from 12 to the end, and we're in the middle of section 4, mantras 9 to 14. So I'll just read the little statement from the beginning of the overview book, an overview of the sections of Sri Isopanisad, section 4, mantras 9 to 14. I'll just read that again. There are different types of non-devotees, and they achieve varying degrees of misfortune. In order to advance nicely, a devotee must understand both the wonderful nature of spiritual life and the defects of material life, culminating in understanding Lord Krishna's position as the supreme absolute truth. So we're in the middle of that, and like I said, we're going on now from 12, and what I'll do right now, let's have a look in our overview book where we give the little brief synopsis, analysis of what mantra 12 is dealing with. You with me? So, yeah. Well, first of all, we make an interesting point. We find a very interesting parallel between this mantra and mantra 9. The only difference in the Sanskrit is that the word avidya, or nescience, is used in the second line of mantra 9. I mean, you can have a look right now. Whereas in mantra 12, the word asambhutin, which means demigods, is used in its place. And in the last line, in chapter 9, the word vidyayam, meaning the culture of knowledge, is used. And in the last line of mantra 12, the word sambhutyam is used, which means the absolute, or even impersonal feature, actually, of the Absolute. Otherwise, if it wasn't for those words, the verses are identical. Literally. Number 9. Andam tamaha pravishanti ye vidyam upasate tato bhuya ivate tamo yao vidyayam rata. And 12 is Andam tamaha pravishanti ye sambhutim upasate tato bhuya ivate tamo yao sambhutyam rata. So, in other words, the message is the same in many respects, although not exactly the same. There's some subtle difference. Okay, let's read verse. Well, no, let me just go on in the overview book. We're looking now at the brief explanation of mantra 12. Both mantras are describing types of people who are opposed to the Ishavasyam principle. Mantra 9 has explained how both the ignorant and intellectual materialists are doomed, although the so-called intelligentsia are actually worse off. Mantra 12 says that demigod worshippers are also destined for ruination. But even worse off are the impersonalists. So, as I said a few minutes ago, as we go deeper into Isopanisad, step by step, it is going deeper into discussing the basic subjects. So, you know, the living entities, the devotees and non-devotees. We're going deeper into understanding the devotees and non-devotees, and here we're going deeper into understanding the non-devotees. So let's have a look at mantra 12. Those who are engaged in the worship of demigods enter into the darkest region of ignorance, and still more so do the worshippers of the impersonal Absolute. Well, you may have noticed in Bhagavad Gita, if you have read your Bhagavad Gita carefully, and if you've attended some seminars and classes on Bhagavad Gita, you may have noticed that in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna refers to the demigod worshippers as Alpa Medasa. Alpa means small. I don't think they use it in Hindi, do they? Alpa? Toda. But in Bengali, still Alpa. Bengali is closer to Sanskrit. So the word Alpa is still used, just commonly, to mean small. And Medasa means intelligence. So the demigod worshippers, Lord Krishna says, Alpa Medasa, they have very small intelligence because they don't understand Him, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone got a Bhagavad Gita here? Look up that verse. Someone has a Bhagavad Gita? How does that verse begin? Do you remember? Bhagavad Gita scholars, any Bhakti Shastris here? I can't remember. If you told me the first word, I'd like to get into it. But anyway, Alpa Medasa. Demigod worshippers are Alpa Medasa, small intelligence. But then Krishna talks about the impersonalists, those who think that God, the absolute truth, is not a person, but is just some light or energy or something. Even some say God is love. So, thank you. Antavat tupalam tesham, tadbavat yalpa medasam, devan deva yajo yanti, madbhakta yanti mam api. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. So there you go. That's Lord Krishna talking about the demigod worshippers. Small intelligence, their gains are limited and temporary, and they just cannot understand the real goal of life and what is really truth. It's just a partial understanding of truth, and some things are missing. And indeed, part of it's wrong. So as fate would have it, in the very next verse, that was 7:23, in the very next verse, Krishna talks about the impersonalists. This is 7:24. Avyaktam vyaktim apanam manyante mam abudaya param bhavam ajananto mamavyayam anutamam. So Prabhupada translates, unintelligent men who do not know me perfectly think that I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, was impersonal before and have now assumed this personality. Due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is imperishable and supreme. So the demigod worshippers, Krishna says, they're alpa medasa, small intelligence. But now these impersonalists, Krishna, the word he uses is a-buddhaya, a-buddhi. Means no buddhi, no intelligence. Not alpa buddhi or alpa medha, like that. But a. When a is put in front of a word in Sanskrit, it means not that, whatever it may be. Not that. Yeah. Like a non-devotee is a Vaishnava. A Vaishnava means non-devotee. Yes, so the impersonalists, their idea, at least about Krishna, is that previously he was impersonal, just some spiritual light, spiritual energy, something impersonal and like that basically. But now that he's appeared here on this planet, now he has assumed a personality. Yeah. Which, and you know, if you assume like a disguise, then the disguised condition is obviously, it's not the real you. So in other words, they would say that when the absolute truth assumes the guise or disguise of a person as Krishna or his different avatars, then it's not really the absolute truth, or it's just, you know, a false sort of manifestation of the absolute truth. Actually, the absolute truth is not a person. And indeed, we may have mentioned the other day, I can't remember, but that if you see a picture of Krishna without any, just Krishna alone, did we say that here? That it's not really accepted as authentic because Krishna's never alone. Another type of not uncommon, unauthentic picture of Krishna, not authentic picture, is a picture of Krishna where in the background is the Om sign. You know what I mean, right? The Om sign. Well, it's not really just the Om sign, it's just the word Om. In fact, in Sanskrit, it's just the word Om. That's how it's spelled. So the so-called Om sign in the background, and Krishna is in front. In other words, the real background, behind the scenes, the real, support and whatever you might, however you might put it, that's the impersonal. The impersonal. That's really there in the background, and it's like the substance. And Krishna, he's in the foreground, and he's just sort of, he's like a front. He's just like a front. But the real thing is in the background, supporting. So this is also another type of picture which is not accepted as being authentic. If you get, and you occasionally, not often at all, but there are a few pictures I've seen, of Krishna, Krishna's there, and coming from Krishna is the Om sign. This is better, at least, because Krishna's the background, and the Om is coming from Krishna, so, it's better, at least. Right. So this is the idea here. Worshipping the demigods is really, well, it's sort of second class, actually. It's definitely second class at best. And the result of it is, well, these demigod worshippers, they're being presented as being members of this category of ignorant people, the non-devotees, the people who are just, they really have dim futures. As the verse says, those who engage in the worship of demigods enter into the darkest region of ignorance. That's pretty heavy. Of course, in the meantime, they may be elevated to a heavenly planet and enjoy for a while. But then, and Krishna explains very clearly in Bhagavad Gita, when the results of their good karma are used up through their enjoying the results of their pious activities, their worship of whichever deity or deities they worshipped, then Krishna makes it very clear, they fall down again. First of all, they fall down to the earth level and become human beings, having been demigods. And then, from the level of human, well, devotees, if you go through Prabhupada's teachings very carefully, you'll see Prabhupada in a few places makes the point that of today's population here on this planet, Prabhupada makes it clear in a few places, those who are not able to come to Krishna consciousness, and particularly those who they're antagonistic or somehow they just miss out altogether, Prabhupada makes it very clear, they all will be going to hell. They'll all be going to some lower situation. Either a lower planet, where there's a lot of suffering, or, second possibility, hellish birth, to be born as animals. or possibly less than animals, that's also considered a birth in hell, a hellish birth, to be born as an animal. So, because if you analyze, just look, the vast majority of people, they eat meat every day. Every day. Once, twice, maybe 3 times in some cases. But it's actually every day. Literally every day. And in the Bhagavatam, what to speak of other scriptures which go into more detail about the specific karmic reactions for different materialistic activities, the Bhagavatam, which just in a very broad way gives a few examples, the Bhagavatam says something to the effect that people who eat, for example, the flesh of a cow, they have to take birth on some particular hellish planet where they are just, just smashed to pieces. It's not just like a few ups and downs in their lives. They just get devastated. For 1,000 lifetimes, for every hair on the body of the cow. Now that's something, isn't it? Wow, that's amazing. That's cows, and of course, that's the worst. But even eating sheep and goats and whatever else, pigs and so on and so forth. There's also just really amazing reactions. Very amazing reactions. And people, that's just for doing it once. And people are doing this every day for like 60 or 70 years. And twice a day, or even 3 times sometimes, like, gee whiz. Oh, it's just, the amount of karma they're building up is really massive, truly massive. And then on top of that, so many are taking intoxication. Then there's illicit sex life, which is not just as simple as sex life with someone other than your marriage partner. There's a lot more to it than that. And what to speak of the cheating and lying, the dishonesty and so on. So, sorry to say it, but the futures of the materialistic people who don't become devotees, particularly those who are antagonistic or they have no contact, really their futures are not good at all. So then we were talking about the demigod worshippers. They go up and get all the benefits, the results of their demigod worship, then they fall down and have human bodies again. And in the great majority of cases, in the human form of life, particularly in Kali Yuga, then they practically all just fall down into some hellish situation and stay there for a very long time. So therefore, in that sense, it is said, those who engage in the worship of demigods enter into the darkest region of ignorance. It may not be today or tomorrow. If they're worshipping demigods, they will enjoy the results soon. But in due course, they'll fall down and then they'll go to the darkest regions of ignorance, and it will not be a very nice experience. And then the worshippers of the impersonal absolute. Well, in Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 2, verse 32. Now, how many of you are Bhakti Shastris? Anyway, look, it's okay. Just tell me, who knows 10 to 32? Okay. It's a good verse to learn. It's about the impersonalists. It's Lord Brahma speaking. Ye ravandaksha mukta maninas, toyasta bhavad avashuddha buddhaya, arura kritrena parampadam tata, patantyado nadrata yushmat angraya. So Lord Brahma says, O lotus-eyed Lord, although non-devotees who accept severe austerities and penances to achieve the highest position may think themselves liberated, impersonal liberation, their intelligence is impure. They fall down from their position of imagined superiority because they have no regard for your lotus feet. So the position of the impersonalists is also incomplete. Like the demigod worshippers, their understanding is incomplete because they think the demigods are the top and they miss Krishna, who's higher, or Vishnu Tattva. The impersonalists, they have some spiritual realization to some degree. They have some spiritual realization of the impersonal feature. I think did we mention the other day? The Brahma Jyoti is the light, the effulgence of Krishna's body, blinding effulgence. So they realize that, and they're sort of higher than material existence. But unfortunately, they don't get the whole picture. They miss out the fact that the light is coming from the Lord. It's the effulgence of the body of the Lord. They miss that. So as Lord Brahma says, they have no regard for your lotus feet, and therefore patantyada is the Sanskrit term. They fall down. So after some time, they take birth again in the human species. When their time in the impersonal Brahma Jyoti is over, they fall down again, take human births, and then sooner or later, they fall down into hellish situations. So like this. And the speaker here says, worshippers of demigods, they may go down to the darkest region of ignorance, but the impersonalists, they go to a place which is even darker than the darkest region of ignorance. That's pretty dark, isn't it? Like sometimes we hear Chatsworth speak. Something is more better. This is Chatsworth speak. More better. Anyway, I'm from Chatsworth, so it's I'm from Newton. What can I say? But more better, more best, more best, supreme, more supreme, most supreme, and even more than most supreme. So, anyway, it's just, it's just a way of putting things. But in other words, they really go down even worse. And the demigod worshippers, they're really more just negligent of the Lord. But the impersonalists, they tend to be offensive to the Lord. Prabhupada describes in Chaitanya Charitamrita the impersonalists saying, God has no arms and legs because he's impersonal, like a light. A light has no arms or legs. So God has no arms or legs, therefore he is lame. God has no brain, because he's just a light. So of course he doesn't have a brain if he's just a light. So God has got no brain, he's stupid. You know, like this. God has no ears, because he's just a light. He's deaf. He can't speak, he's dumb. And, you know, so like this, they're offensive towards the Lord. And even they say that it is not to Krishna. Well, Krishna says at the end of Bhagavad Gita 1866, just surrender to me. But the impersonalists, one of the classic statements from, I will not mention his name, but one of the prominent impersonalists of this century, that it is not to the person Krishna that we must surrender, but it is to the unborn, impersonal energy within Krishna that we must surrender. So this is just nasty. It's really nasty. Let's go on to 13. Anyad evahu sambhavat, anyad ahur asambhavat, iti shushruma dhiranam, yenas tad vichachakshare. It is said that one result is obtained by worshipping the supreme cause of all causes, and that another result is obtained by worshipping what is not supreme. All this is heard from the undisturbed authorities who clearly explained it. Let's just look at our overview book and just see what we've said here. There's another interesting point just about the structure of the verse. We say in the book, first paragraph in the book, in the overview book about mantra 13, again we find an interesting parallel, this time with mantra 10. The only difference is that in mantra 10, the word vidyaya, by culture of knowledge, is used in the first line, whereas here in the 13th mantra, sambhavat, by worshipping the Supreme Lord, the cause of all causes, is used in the first line. And in the second line of verse 10, avidyaya, culture of nescience, is used. And the second line here of mantra 13, what is it? Asambhavat, worshipping that which is not supreme, is used. Sambhavat basically means supreme, and asambhavat means, of course, that which isn't supreme. So that's interesting. So we go on to say here in your overview books, they have similar messages. Mantra 10 is pointing out that there are different results achieved through cultivating either knowledge or nescience. And mantra 13 explains that different results are achieved through worshipping either that which is supreme or that which is not supreme. So, anyway, you know, in a sense it's a sort of a simple point, but important point. Let's see what now. Yes, okay. So that's the basic point. That's the basic point in 13. That's the basic point, but then there is another point which is, of course, extremely important. Well, actually, there's a couple of other points. And we've mentioned it, in fact, in the overview book, in the third paragraph. One has to hear from verse 13 says, Dira Nam, the undisturbed transcendentalists. Prabhupada explains in the purport, the undisturbed transcendentalists who come in disciplic succession. And if we hear from them nicely, then we get the message. Not just some mental speculator who, I woke up one morning and I just realized, hey, I'm God. Wow, fantastic. There are many incarnations of God today, quote unquote incarnations, who are not. They really are not. And there are many people teaching many things, spiritual type things. But what they're presenting is misunderstandings and ignorance in the name of disguised as knowledge. I'll give you an example. Srila Prabhupada, if you read Srila Prabhupada and listen to Prabhupada, and if you really go deeply into what Prabhupada presents, then you'll come across, on a number of occasions, Prabhupada makes the following point, that many impersonalists say that we are God, but we have just forgotten. That's all. We just forgot. And now all we need to do is just remember. Oh yeah, oh that's it, forgot, okay. We just need to remember, oh yeah, I'm God, okay. And then everything's fine. But Prabhupada speaks extremely strongly against this fairly common idea amongst the impersonalists. On a number of occasions he speaks strongly against it. That if we are God, but now we are in ignorance, it means ignorance is more powerful than God. So maybe ignorance should be called God. And we should be called something else because, we appear to not be in that godly position. Yes, so some years ago, actually maybe 10 or so, I was interacting with one family. They're in the process of becoming devotees, and already some of them had become, and the parents were in the process. But they were prominent followers of one of these sort of impersonalist type people. We will not mention any names, okay? So yeah, in fact they were leaders in that person's organization in Chatsworth. And they're a little worried, what will people say? People from the organization. If we give up that and become Hare Krishnas, what will people say? So they gave me one of this person's books and asked me, have a look through it and see what you think. And they said, well, all of the followers of this person, they say he's God, they say he's Krishna. And, so his books, Bhagavad Gita, it's the same, no problem. So read the book and see what you think and understand. So I just opened the book, and would you believe it? On the very first page, just where I opened the book, this person said that we are all God, but unfortunately we've all forgotten. And now all we have to do is remember. And then again we'll be situated as God. And it was a bit of a wow moment. This person is just another impersonalist, actually. And what he is saying contradicts Krishna. How can he be Krishna if he contradicts himself like extremely strongly, extremely heavily, it's like trying to be a communist, a heavy Marxist, while being Bill Gates at the same time. You know, it just doesn't, you can't mix the two. Yeah. So yeah, anyway, the thing is that we have to hear from the undisturbed authorities, which means the devotees coming in disciplic succession. And Krishna, of course, emphasizes this in Bhagavad Gita. Evam parampara praptam imam rajashayo vidu. Krishna explains what is his system for disseminating the knowledge and giving people the process when he's not present to do it himself. It is not through buying a book in CNA and then doing it yourself. Back to Godhead in, 10 easy lessons. Like learn a language. I have a couple of books. Learn Russian in 30 days. Learn Hindi in 30 days. I tell you what, forget it completely. Learn a language in 30 days. A few sentences and little catchphrases, okay. But you can't learn a language in 30 days. It's too complex and you need help. So the most complex subject, God, and how to approach it and how to get out of the material world, you need help. And Krishna's system for giving this help is the disciplic succession. So the disciplic succession it went from Krishna through Brahma to Narada to Vyas to Madhvacharya, from Vyas, Madhvacharya, and then on through Lord Chaitanya, the 6 Goswamis, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Srila Prabhupada, through the current generation, and it will continue on into the future, through the future generations. Because this is Krishna's system. This is how it works. And he makes it clear in Bhagavad Gita. Of course, in so many other places, it's also made very clear. But in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna just spells it out. How do I distribute knowledge of myself and the process? How to approach me? Through parampara. And, so today we have disciples of Srila Prabhupada who are taking that role in parampara. And already today, we have some devotees from the following generation, after the disciples of Prabhupada, their disciples, who are already taking their role and service in disciplic succession. Already it's gone or going beyond just the disciples of Prabhupada. Already it's going to the next generation. And it will continue. This is Krishna's process. And not, of course, the Ritvik hallucination, speculation, concoction. Okay, so let's go on now to mantra 14. Mantra 14. Sambhutam cha vinasham cha yastad vedo vayam saha vinashena mrityum tirtva sambhut yam ritam ashnute. One should know perfectly the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna and his transcendental name, form, qualities, and pastimes, as well as the temporary material creation with its temporary demigods, men and animals. When one knows these, he surpasses death and the ephemeral cosmic manifestation with it. And in the eternal kingdom of God, he enjoys his eternal life of bliss and knowledge. So we make a little note, if you look at your overview books again, Mantra 14, there are similarities between this mantra and Mantra 11. Although Mantra 14 is more specific as to what transcendental knowledge is concerned with. So like I said, you find the structuring of the Isopanisad is introduce one subject, then another subject, and maybe like a third subject perhaps. And then go back to the first subject, but now in more depth. And then back to the next subject, but in more depth. And so on. And then back to the first subject again, but in more depth. This is the approach, really. So step by step going deeper into the subjects, the Lord, the process for approaching Him, the people who approach Him, and the people who don't approach Him, and their process, their processes, like that. Yes, so anyway, it is, you could say, we don't want to say repetitive, because it's not really repetitive, it's just driving the point home deeper and a little bit in more detail. That we really need to understand Krishna and surrender to Krishna, and we really need to understand the material nature in the right ways, and build up Prabhupada would say, a healthy distaste for material existence. A healthy distaste. Yeah. Well, you know what Yamunacharya said, that, because he was a king before, and was very opulent, and he really enjoyed. And particularly he enjoyed with women. He had, a whole retinue of women, like queens, or like that, queens, concubines, and all that sort of thing. So he was trying to enjoy material existence in that way. Then he became a devotee. And when he became a devotee, he really became a devotee. And he just became an amazing first-class devotee. And he basically became fully Krishna conscious and fully God realized. So he has composed a number of like small books, you could say, collections of prayers and like that. And in one of them, famous verse, he says that now I'm tasting the sweetness of your lotus feet, Krishna, and how much nectar there is in your lotus feet, how much pleasure. When I think back to the pleasure I enjoyed with women before, and how I used to think it was so nice and it was just, the best. When I think back to that, and I compare it to what I'm experiencing now in Krishna consciousness, that from the past, it looks so stupid. It's like it's ridiculous. I thought that was enjoyment. And he says, my lips curl in distaste, and I spit at the thought. Not just, I can renounce women, you know, I can do without the opposite sex, I can sort of handle it. Not that. Way beyond that. Way beyond. Through relishing the nectar of Krishna consciousness, that material, even the best material pleasure, looks just worthy of being spat upon. It's pretty strong, isn't it? That's really strong. Okay. Okay, so now let's do a time check. Now we'll take a 5-minute break. Is that okay? We'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll continue on into the last section, beginning with Mantra 15. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Okay, devotees, please take your seats again. We're going into the last section of the book, and let us read through the very brief overview of this section, which is there in the beginning of your overview books. Because here now, there's a total change. There's just a total change from highly philosophical, analytical, like that, into extremely personal and intensely, emotionally personal. But it all follows on. So, okay, we say here, section 5, mantras 15 to 18. The speaker feelingly appeals to the Lord to remove his dazzling bodily effulgence and reveal his personal form. The time of death is approaching, and the devotee acknowledges that he is far from perfect, but prays that the Lord be merciful to him and, overlooking his shortcomings, accept him as an eternal servant and give him shelter at his lotus feet at the time of death. Yes, so it's really a change of perspective, you could say. Let us read the verse 15 first of all. Hiranmayena patrena satyasya pihitam mukam tatvam pushana pavrenu satyadharmaya drishtaye. O my Lord, sustainer of all that lives, your real face is covered by your dazzling effulgence. Kindly remove that covering and exhibit yourself to your pure devotee. You know, even sometimes, there are a few occasions Srila Prabhupada said that he was a pure devotee. Normally, you see, devotees don't say things like that about themselves. In fact, in many cases, they say, you know, I'm nothing, I'm not even a devotee, or something extremely humble. But there are definitely occasions where Prabhupada said he was a pure devotee. Few. And there's one occasion, Srila Prabhupada, his godbrothers, who were a really sort of mixed bag, and a difficult group, actually. The majority were sort of pretty difficult. So they were criticizing Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada said, it's in writing, I actually just forget offhand exactly where it is, that these devotees are criticizing the way that Prabhupada allowed certain things like women to live in ashrams, like women to receive second initiation. Up till that time, Prabhupada's time, it was not done. And you know, different things, a few different things like that. And Prabhupada said that these people, they cannot do anything themselves. They cannot really spread Krishna consciousness much. But still, they criticize the Mahabhagavat, who is spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world. Yeah, Srila Prabhupada says that. So here we have this devotee is saying, I'm a pure devotee. Anyway, well, I think he is. I'm pretty sure. I'm sure he is. He or they are the personified Vedas. And yeah, they're pure devotees. Of course, Srila Prabhupada used this term pure devotee in a few different ways, in different contexts. Sometimes to indicate the most exalted levels of devotees. Sometimes to include the middle class devotees. Even, I think it's in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a little section describing how Kanishta Adhikaris, some under circumstances, may be pure devotees. So, you know, it's an interesting subject. Not a simple subject. And Prabhupada, one time, famous little anecdote, I think so many of you will have heard it. He was asked by, I think, a reporter, somebody like that how many pure devotees are there in ISKCON? At the time in ISKCON, there were, I think, 3 temples. New York, San Francisco, and Montreal, I think. Something like that. It was really the early days. So, how many pure devotees are there in your ISKCON? Prabhupada turned to his secretary and said, how many devotees do we have now? And the devotee said, well, in New York so many, in San Francisco so many, and wherever else so many. And it added up to about 120 devotees, if I remember correctly. He said, yes, we have 120 devotees, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada said to the person asking the question, in ISKCON we have 120 pure devotees. Famous story. Okay, anyway, that's sort of by the way. But the real point, the main point, which we mention, of course, in our overview book, is that, let's see, is that the Lord sustains everything, but still the speaker cannot see him. It's like in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives the example, I'm sustaining everything, like how pearls are hung on a thread. You cannot see the thread, usually. You just see the pearls. Thread you can't see. So, but if you think it's just the pearls are just hanging there like that, and you just overlook the thread, you've really missed it. So, therefore we say here, the Lord sustains everything. The Lord is behind everything, but still the speaker cannot see him. He longs to see the face of his beloved Lord and asks that the Brahmajyoti covering it be removed. So Prabhupada goes on to discuss in this first paragraph here of the purport of 15 about the three features of the Absolute Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. We already spoke about them to some degree. And Krishna is so effulgent, so extremely effulgent, that you look at him and you can't see him because he's too effulgent. And this is what this devotee is. He's a devotee. This is what this devotee is experiencing. He's seeing the Brahmajyoti, seeing the effulgence of Krishna's body. And he wants the eyes. He wants to be given the eyes to see through that light. You know, like sometimes, if you watch an eclipse, I think you're meant to put on certain glasses. If you want to look at the sun, you shouldn't just look at the sun, right? These things, it's just, the brightness is too much. You need some special arrangement for your eyes. Otherwise, your eyes can't handle it. So Krishna is there to be seen, but you need the eyes to see him. And what are those eyes? Is it just better glasses? Is it dark glasses? A microscope, a telescope, binoculars, some sort of visual aid? Is that what you need to see Krishna? Is that what will make the difference, so that our eyes will then be able to see him, who otherwise we're not able to see? You know, this devotee, at least he sees the Brahmajyoti. I don't think any of us have seen the Brahmajyoti yet. Have any of you seen? I don't. No. So, I think he's more advanced than us, at least. So, how do you get those eyes to see? Premanjana Charita Bhakti Valochana Santa Sadaiva Hridayeshu Valokayanti. Lord Brahma says, if your eyes become treated, anointed with the ointment of love, then you can see the Lord within your heart. And actually you can see the Lord everywhere. Yes. So this devotee then, he has come to that point where he can see the Brahmajyoti, but he can't actually see Krishna. And it's not, like I said, it's not just a matter of getting some special X-ray specs to see through the effulgence. He's got to make some further progress, actually. And yeah, he's got to make some further progress to get those eyes of love. Because, you know, when Krishna entered the wrestling arena in Mathura, when Krishna left Vrindavan, Akrura took him and he went to participate in a wrestling match. That's described in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. So then, when Krishna and Balaram walked out into the arena, different people, depending on their state of consciousness, they saw him differently. Because of their state of mind, because of their attitudes towards him, their eyes were functioning differently in regard to him. So therefore, the young girls, they saw Krishna and Balaram as the most handsome young teenagers like that. And the older ladies, the sort of mature ladies, the mothers, they saw Krishna and Balaram as these innocent little boys, children, who are going to have to fight these monstrous wrestlers. And they thought, this is terrible, how can you do that? They're just little, like, school-age children. And then the cowherd boys, they were there. They had come from Vrindavan. The cowherd boys, they saw Krishna and Balaram as these rough, tough young guys. Tough guys. And they thought, yeah, get those wrestlers. Because they knew they're really tough, these two. And then the wrestlers, they saw Krishna and Balaram as death personified, or as thunderbolts, just, devastating. And they became frightened. Kamsa saw Krishna and Balaram as death personified. However, there were some impersonalists there. When Krishna and Balaram walked out into the arena, they saw, you know what they saw? They saw two lights. They didn't see Krishna and Balaram. They saw these two lights moving out across the wrestling arena. Because of their attitudes, because of their consciousness, their sense of sight was acting in different ways, these different personalities. And there were some yogis, mystic yogis, Paramatma realized yogis. When Krishna and Balaram walked out into the arena, they saw these two four-armed super soul forms. Yeah. And there were some, like Buddhists. Of course, Buddha had not yet appeared, but before Buddha appeared, there were people who were holding the same philosophy. Buddha didn't exactly create a philosophy. He sort of adopted an existing philosophy which was a form of Mayavad. It's called Kshanik Vijnanavad. The forerunners of the Buddhists are called the Kshanik Vijnanavadis. And they're Shunyavadis, voidists. They say nothing exists. We don't exist. Nothing exists. So when they saw Krishna and Balaram walking out into the arena, they saw nothing. They saw nothing. Yeah. So this devotee here then, the personified Vedas, he's a devotee. And actually he's a very advanced devotee. But still he hasn't quite come to that point where he can see the Lord in front of him. In the purport, well, we make the point in your overview book, Mantra 15, second paragraph. To achieve the association of Lord Krishna and Sri Vrindavan Dham is the most wonderful thing, the supreme attainment. So there's a description, we won't go through the details, but it's in the purport. If you read through the purport, you'll see Srila Prabhupada talks about different of Krishna's pastimes and how they're really, Krishna's pastimes are so wonderful. Like page 111, the paragraph beginning just at the top of the page. The personality of Godhead Sri Krishna is always filled with transcendental bliss. When he was president of Vrindavan in India 5,000 years ago, he always remained in transcendental bliss, even from the beginning of his childhood pastimes. The killings of various demons such as Agabaka, Putana and Pralamba were but pleasure excursions for him. In his village of Vrindavan, he enjoyed himself with his mother, brother and friends. And when he played the role of a naughty butter thief, all his associates enjoyed celestial bliss by his stealing. So the thing is, Krishna, you may realize the Brahmajyoti. This devotee here is certainly perceiving the Brahmajyoti. And then you get, he's not an impersonalist, but still he's seeing the effulgence of the Lord. The pleasure of the impersonalists may be more than the pleasure we get just in ordinary everyday life. In fact, Rupa Goswami says in Nectar of Devotion that the pleasure of realizing the impersonal feature of the Absolute is like the amount of water in an ocean compared to the amount of water in the hoof print of a calf. So whatever pleasure people are getting in ordinary everyday activities is very small compared to the pleasure of impersonal realization. However, Rupa Goswami goes on to make the same point about the pleasure of pure devotional service compared to the pleasure of impersonal realization. And in that context, he says, the pleasure of impersonal realization is like the amount of water in the hoof print of a calf. And the amount of pleasure in pure Krishna consciousness is like an ocean. So the thing is, Krishna does all these amazing pastimes. And even the pastimes in which he apparently does bad things, which in many cases would upset people, like someone steals something from you. Can you imagine if you go swimming in the sea or in a river, and, you know, for argument's sake, if you don't have your swimming trunks and you just go in with no clothes on and leave your clothes on the bank, and if someone came along and stole your clothes, what would you think? Oh, yeah, you would not be happy. But Krishna did exactly that. He stole the clothes of the gopis, and they chastised him, but it was all in the mood of loving exchange. And at the end, they were very happy. And when they got their clothes back, they left. And as they left, the Bhagavatam says, they were just singing the glories of Krishna. They were not talking about how we're going to get him. We'll steal his clothes next time, and we'll just burn them. We won't even give them back. We're just going to teach him a lesson. Not at all. They went away singing the glories of Krishna. Because as Srila Prabhupada said, when Krishna was here as a child, when Krishna was good, he was good. And when Krishna was bad, he was good. This is Krishna consciousness. When Krishna is good, he's good. And when Krishna is bad, he's good. Absolute. So Krishna, whatever he does, even his killing demons, monstrous demons, you know, like Putana, 12 kilometers tall. Sure, that's a big demon. So Krishna killed her and the other demons. But Prabhupada says they were pleasure excursions. Krishna stole the butter. But the ladies were thinking, when will Krishna come and steal my butter? And sometimes they would drop hints to Krishna. You know, I've got some good butter today. So they wanted Krishna to come and steal the butter. And even though their husbands complained, because you know what husbands are like. Anyway, even though their husbands complained, but that was also just part of loving exchange. They were not really angry. So when Krishna's good, he's good, and when Krishna's bad, he's good. Krishna stole the butter, because he knew that the love of the cows and the love for him of the older gopis had all gone into the butter. It had all gone into the butter. This is why home cooking is better than just buying something somewhere. Home cooking is better because generally it's done with love. So the cows, their love went into the milk, and the gopis turned the milk into yogurt and then made butter from the yogurt. All their love went into the butter. Krishna, we should not think Krishna is just some butter fanatic. He's just got a taste for butter. No, no, no. You know, like people in Durban, don't just think they're bean fanatics. Hare Krishna. Sorry, I take that back. So yeah, Krishna's not just a butter fanatic. That whatever he eats, he's got to have butter. Fruit salad with butter. I don't know, anything. Cup of tea with butter. No, it's because the love is there. And he wants to taste their love and accept their love. Otherwise, if he doesn't eat the butter, how can he accept the love which has gone into it? So he has to eat the butter. But he has to steal it. Because they're not going to just give it to him. Because the ladies are afraid their husbands will get angry. Yeah. So, like this. So, yes. So we should understand the personal feature is higher than the impersonal feature. You cannot have a loving relationship with a light. Some light. Like, say, with the sky. I love the sky. I want to embrace the sky. You can't do that. I want to serve the sky. You can't do it. But you can express your feelings for a person. So, okay, let's go on to mantra 16. Pushane karshe yama surya prajapatya Vyuha Rashmin Samuha Tejo Yate Rupam Kalyana Tamam Tate Pashyami Yo Savaso Purusha Soham Asmi. O my Lord, O primeval philosopher, maintainer of the universe, O regulating principle, destination of the pure devotees, well-wisher of the progenitors of mankind, please remove the effulgence of your transcendental rays so that I can see your form of bliss. You are the eternal Supreme Personality of Godhead, like unto the sun, as am I. Well, as you know, Prabhupada was not just Prabhupada, but in our line, Lord Chaitanya, all of our great acharyas, staunchly against impersonalism, staunchly against it, because it just corrupts so many things in so many ways. It's amazing. So Prabhupada in the purport, the very first thing he does is address this statement at the end. You're the eternal Supreme Personality of Godhead, like the sun, and as am I. I'm also like the sun. So, in other words, are we equal? are you and I equal? Because if we're both equal to the sun, if two things are equal to a third thing, they must be equal to each other. So, but Prabhupada explains, the sun and its rays are one and the same qualitatively. Similarly, the Lord and the living entities are one and the same in quality. So that's a good example. You know, when it's a nice sunny day, the sun comes in through the window, doesn't it? You see the sun coming in. And you say that. You say that. The sun's coming in. But you're lucky that the sun, as such, does not come in. You know, if the actual sun came in, you would, as they say, get fried. You would get so fried, you would just get too fried. Super fried. So we recognize a type of oneness, a type of unity, but not complete unity between the sun and its rays, or the gold in the gold mine and the gold in your ring. It's the same gold, it's one in quality, but in quantity it's greatly different. So that's the point in that regard. So, one point here is, and it comes out in the purport, I think towards the end, let me just check. Towards the end. Oh, okay. Is that, Prabhupada explains towards the end of the purport that it is on page 122, end of the purport. A few lines down from the top of page 122. The Lord always helps the pure devotees by imparting necessary knowledge within their hearts. And thus, out of His special favor, He dissipates all the darkness of ignorance. The speculative philosophers and yogis cannot imagine this because they more or less depend on their own strength. As stated in Sri Isopanisad, the Lord can be known only by those whom He favors and not by anyone else. We read about that last night. Such favors are bestowed upon His pure devotees only. You know, if you look at the verse itself, you'll see that this devotee is appealing to the Lord and by referring to particular aspects of the Lord, which are merciful aspects. The Lord is the primeval philosopher. That's very merciful. He speaks Bhagavad Gita. It's His great mercy to us. He's the maintainer of the universe, and He maintains us because we're within the universe. This is His mercy. He's the regulating principle. That's His mercy. Everything functions in systematic ways and doesn't just go haywire. That's His mercy. He's the destination of the pure devotees. That's His mercy. And He's the well-wishers of the progenitors of mankind and everyone. So the Lord, the devotee is trying to arouse the mercy of the Lord, appealing to Him for His mercy by sort of reminding the Lord, don't forget you're merciful and be merciful to me. Yeah, don't forget your merciful side. Yeah. this is really the nature of this prayer here from this devotee to the Lord, that you're merciful, that's your nature, and I need your mercy. So let's move on to 17. Vayor anilam amritam atedam basmantam shariram om kratos smara kritam smara kratos smara kritam smara. Let this temporary body be burnt to ashes, and let the air of life be merged with the totality of air. Now, O my Lord, please remember all my sacrifices, and because you are the ultimate beneficiary, please remember all that I've done for you. So, you might argue that this is this a pure devotee? Is this the request of a pure devotee? Why doesn't he just say, you know, how can I serve you? And leave it at that. Anyway, the thing is that prayer, particularly at, very crucial points in one's life, prayer is an important part of the process of Krishna consciousness. And we have many prayers in our literatures and here and there. So many prayers. And so many of them are in the mood that I'm not in a good position. Please help me. Krishna, Lord Chaitanya. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu, Daya Kara More. And the whole song, Lord Nityananda, please be merciful. Advaita Acharya, please be merciful. 6 Goswamis, please be merciful. Srinivasa Acharya, please be merciful. So certainly, in principle, there's nothing wrong with the devotee praying for mercy. That in my poor condition, I need your mercy, my Lord. Of course, the Lord knows what we need better than we know what we need. He does not need to be reminded that, Krishna, just in case you forgot, I need. So mercy. Krishna knows. Krishna generally knows better than us that we know mercy, that we need mercy also. There's an interesting passage in Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary to Bhagavad Gita 1856. In 1854 and 5, I think, Krishna talks about the impersonalists and how after many lifetimes of great struggle for God realization, they may become Brahman realize the light or the impersonal feature, maybe. And then in 56, Krishna says, however, my devotees, even though engaged in all different types of activities, they quickly come to me by my mercy, mat prasadat. By my mercy, they quickly come to me. Even though they're engaged in all different types of activities. Like Arjuna was a householder. He was not a renunciate, a philosopher, something like that. He was a householder, married man, and he was living in extremely opulent circumstances which would have made Bill Gates look like a street person, almost, or something like that. I mean, huge contrast. Yeah, but Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to him and not to so many others because there were many other advanced devotees and there were impersonalists also. So, yeah, even though engaged like in household life, making a living for his or her family, still my devotee easily comes to me by my grace. So according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Arjuna protests here that how can it be like that? That these impersonalists, they work so hard and they renounce everything and they struggle even for lifetimes and they may get partial realization. But your devotee goes back to Godhead, gets complete realization in one lifetime, even though doing all different sorts of things by your mercy. And Arjuna says, it doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem logical. What's the logic? And Krishna says, the logic is that there is no logic. The logic is my mercy. My mercy is very powerful. So that mercy is there for the devotees, not for the impersonalists, not for the Paramatma people, not for the demigod worshippers, and not for the ordinary gross materialists. It is there for the devotees. And you may know that in Ramayana, when Vibhishan left Ravan, abandoned Ravan, and went to join Lord Ram, he flew across to the India side, and he came flying in some sort of aircraft, and Angada, one of the leaders of the monkeys, saw him and told Lord Ram and said, look, it's Vibhishan. He's a demon. He's one of Ravana's brothers. Let's kill him. And Lord Ram said, no, it's okay. Let's just wait and see what he wants. But Angada, he just wanted to kill Vibhishan. And eventually Vibhishan landed and he approached Lord Ram. And he offered his obeisances. And he said to Lord Ram, my Lord, from this day on, I'm yours. And Lord Ram accepted him. But then at that point, Angada said, my Lord, don't listen to him. He's a demon. Just kill him. The only good demon is a dead demon. Others don't trust them at all. So this was Angada's situation. And then Lord Ram became angry with Angada. And he said, listen, even if Ravana himself came to me and surrendered to me like Vibhishan, I would immediately accept him. And Lord Ram told Angada, it's quoted in Nectar of Devotion, that anyone who approaches me and says, my Lord, from this day on, I'm yours, I will never forget that person. So this is the mercy of the Lord. And ultimately, this is what this devotee is saying. You know, he's a very advanced devotee. He's extremely knowledgeable. Here he is, he's basically seeing the Lord. And he's at the time of death. But he's appealing to the Lord for mercy. And what to speak of people like us? I mean, you're all nice devotees. Very nice devotees. But we should never forget, it's sort of like our constitutional position. Of course, our constitutional position is to be devotees. But in an esoteric or inner sense, our constitutional position is that we need mercy. Yeah. And our constitution, we should take the position of praying for mercy. as, like our fundamental possession. And then we may get the mercy of the Lord. So, let us go on to mantra 18. We are almost there. Agnenaya supataraye asman, Vishvani deva vayunani vidvan, Yuyodyasvaj juhuranam eno, Buyishtam te nama uktim videma. O my Lord, as powerful as fire, O omnipotent one, now I offer you all obeisances falling on the ground at your feet. O my Lord, please lead me on the right path to reach you. And since you know all that I've done in the past, please free me from the reactions to my past sins, so that there will be no hindrance to my progress. So, like this, as Prabhupada says here in the purport, right in the beginning, by surrendering to the Lord and praying for his causeless mercy, the devotee can progress on the path of complete self-realization. So this devotee is in the process of leaving his body, and he is just begging the Lord for mercy. Let's just see here. Yes, actually, in the purport, you'll see if you read the whole purport, Prabhupada's talking about how the material world is very difficult, but the Lord is so merciful that if we surrender to him, he'll take away all our reactions. Well, actually, I'm sorry. In the purport of mantra 17, let's see, page 128, just where that paragraph begins near the top. The Lord clearly describes his intimate relationship with his devotees in Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 9, verses 30 to 34. Even if one commits the most abominable action, if he's engaged in devotional service, he's to be considered saintly, because he's properly situated in his determination. He quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. So Prabhupada, in the next paragraph, he refers to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who is commenting on the first of these verses, chapter 9, verse 30. One should regard a devotee of Krishna to be on the right path of the saints, even though such a devotee may seem to be sudur acha, a person of loose character. You can read the whole thing, but the basic point is that if you engage in devotional service, you get great mercy. There's great mercy in the process of devotional service. Why? Because Krishna is merciful. That's why. Krishna is so merciful. I don't know how many of you were there on Sunday in Radharanath, but I mentioned in the class in the afternoon how, again, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes very interesting comment in his purport to one of the verses in the section in the 9th canto where Maharaj Ambarish is offended by Davasamuni. Devasa approaches the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Devasa offended Maharaja Ambarish. The Lord sent his Sudarshana chakra to kill Devasa and Devasa ran. And he ended up with the Lord and appealing to the Lord, "This is your weapon. Please withdraw it. I'm surrendering to you. I'm in a fallen condition. I'm in need of mercy, and you're very merciful. So please be merciful to me. I really need it." And he says to the Lord, "Your heart is so kind. Your heart is so merciful. And look at me, I need mercy from your heart. So from your heart, please be merciful to me." And according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the Lord replies that, "Yes, you're right. I have a very merciful heart. And I'm very merciful to the fallen and the distressed. I'm very fallen. I'm very merciful." And the Lord says, "However, here, there is one problem though. The problem is that I no longer have a heart. I gave my heart away. I gave it to my devotees. So therefore, I don't have a merciful heart any longer, and I can't help you. If you want the mercy, if you want mercy from my merciful heart, you have to approach the devotees, because it's their property now." So he had to go back to Maharaja Ambarish and beg for his mercy. So, yes, the process of devotional service is so merciful. Even someone is very fallen, they can still recover easily and go back to Godhead. Look at Ajamil. Just look at that as an example. How amazing is the process of devotional service. And why is it so amazing? Because Krishna is kind. And his mercy is there in the process of devotional service. So then, to conclude, let's see, on page 137, we're back in the purport of mantra 18. Let's see. Yes. The second paragraph. Vedic knowledge is transcendental and cannot be understood by mundane educational procedures. One can understand the Vedic mantras only by the grace of the Lord and the spiritual master. Yasya deve para bhaktir yata deve tata guru. If one takes shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, it is to be understood that he has obtained the grace of the Lord. The Lord appears as the spiritual master for the devotee. Thus the spiritual master, the Vedic injunctions, and the Lord himself from within all guide the devotee in full strength. In this way, there's no chance for a devotee to fall down again into the mire of material illusion. The devotee, thus protected all around, is sure to reach the ultimate destination of perfection. So that's really the concluding message. Take shelter of the devotees. Take shelter of the spiritual master. Process of devotional service. Pray for mercy, and then the Lord will also reveal himself to us. Hare Krishna. I think that's the end of our session for this evening. I think it's the end of our seminar. Thank you all very much for attending. my humble apologies if it did not live up to your hopes or expectations. What can we do? Such is life. Grantaraj Sri Isopanisad ki
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Gaur Premanande. There will be prasad shortly. And Naveen is up to some nonsense.
Program that he had with us, and we wish that he will have more, because it was very, very inspiring and interesting, and we have learned so much from this, and we can interact in our Krishna consciousness even better and make more advancement. And above all, we want to thank Maharaj for being with us. For the past 40 years he has been in ISKCON. Please give him a big round of applause. That's a very, very long time. So we want to thank Maharaj, and we have Mother Prasuti here to just say a few words on this wonderful 40 years of celebration of Maharaj in ISKCON. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I'm not sure who all was at Shri Radhanath temple on Sunday. Maharaj gave such a nice talk. One thing he reminded me of is the shortage of the hot tap. And you know, the devotees in those days, we were accustomed to only using cold water, and I think it was one of the things that was very good for the losing the bodily conception, you know, because there was no indulgence there. But he also talked very nicely about how devotees used to go on Krishna on book distribution. They would always go with partners, and there was a lot of devotee support. So it was a very nice lecture. I can't possibly repeat it all, but I'm sorry for all of you who listened. Maybe it was recorded. Anyway, it's Maharaj has a very good track record of being fully engaged as a devotee, and you know, we can all hope to emulate such to get to such a position where we can be 100% engaged in Krishna consciousness. And personally, I would like to thank Maharaj very much for being such a wonderful example and enthusiastic servant of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, who, if he was here today, express great pleasure for all the wonderful service you've done. I see they've made another nice cake for you. So, if you could kindly stand up, please. I don't think we can bring it closer. If you could stand, and then they can also, once you've cut it, then they can possibly do what you did the other day, where they pass you trays of it, and then you can serve it out again, which was a great draw for all the devotees. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Bhakti Chaitanya Swami Maharaj ki
Jai!
Bhakti Chaitanya Swami Maharaj ki
Jai!
Bhakti Chaitanya Swami Maharaj ki
Jai!
Srila Prabhupada ki
jai.
Can I eat a bit?
Yes, ma'am.
It's okay? Scrumptious. Can I have another bite?
Please do.
Yes!